me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
At the end of the day, you literally get to leave a lasting legacy through what you do in Parks and Recreation. But the things that we get to be a part of, again, the parks that we create, the facilities that we develop, the programs that we offer, the services that we provide, you're impacting lives every single day when you show up for work, and you can't put a price tag on that. No salary or compensation can pay you what seeing a smile that you get to put on somebody's face can pay you.
Welcome back to the Daily Parks and Rec Show Leadership Series, and today we're bringing you a truly special conversation. From our very first days on the mic back at episode 9 all the way to now, our guest has been part of this journey, and he's back with an inspiring story. Cameron, Parks and Rec professional and author of the children's book Home is Where Your Park Is, joins us to share how his multi-generational Parks and Rec legacy shaped his career and how the lessons from his grandfather continue to inspire future leaders. In this episode, you'll hear about the power of storytelling, the importance of mentorship, and how one family's dedication to Parks and Rec has created a lasting impact across communities. This is more than a conversation about a book. It's about legacy, leadership, and why the people in our parks are what make them truly perfect. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this one. Let's dive in. All right, we are live again. This is Craig LeBlanc with the Daily Parks and Rec Show here on the Leadership Series, and I have a very special guest all the way from my 9th episode when I went to the Parks and Rec convention in Kentucky. Cameron was one of my first guests, and he is also the author of a great book. And so we're going to hear all about that and his childhood growing up in Parks and Rec, multi-generational. But first, I want to thank everybody for getting us this far. Going to play our thank you episode, our thank you promotion, and then we're going to play another one right after that about how strategic partners can start working with us. So we'll play that. And we'll be right back. From a simple mic in a rec center to a full-scale media company for the people who power our parks. 200 real stories, 5 original shows, and more to come, with one powerful mission: to lift up the voices of Parks and Rec professionals across the country. From maintenance crews and young interns and youths who love sports, to directors and public servants making a difference. We've built a platform that honors the unsung heroes behind every clean trail, every weekend tournament, every safe, welcoming park. This milestone isn't just about the content, it's about the people, the passion, the purpose. To every guest, listener, and supporter, thank you. The next chapter starts today. This is DPRS Media Co. Media for public service. All right, my next promotion goes out to all of my strategic partners. It is a growing list. We're up to 22 people that we are in negotiations with that want to help us co-create standalone shows for the Parks and Rec industry and all the different nuanced conversations that we need to have, whether it's from finance or software, Internet of Things. We have an aquatics show coming up, an urban forestry show coming up. We're hoping to launch 12 of them by the end of the year, each with 4 strategic partners, so that they can help provide that wisdom that's only found deep in understanding about all the specifics of Parks and Rec. So we made a little promotion to kind of explain that a little bit more, because we're only going to take 48 sponsors, and that's all I'm going to do at least for the next 12 months after that. So if you'd like to help us create content for the Parks and Rec industry, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and here's a little promo made just for you.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.
All right, Cameron, how do we do on our promo creations? Were you getting any better at this?
Man, yeah, this is incredible. Yeah, like you said, all the way back to the 9th episode, and just to see how far it's come, this is pretty cool to be a part of. So
yeah,
super happy for you guys.
When we had our first I guess convention where we started going live.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't even live back then. And I didn't even have a microphone. Or I had a microphone. It might have been like these were my microphones.
That's right. Yeah. I love it.
It wasn't much. And I think it was just me by myself. And then now there's 8 of us full time working on this, putting in like 400 man hours a week.
That's incredible.
Doing everything with the newsletter. Do you ever write any articles for Parks and Rec?
I've written a few. Yeah, I've written a couple for the NRPA Parks and Rec magazine.
Yeah. Well,
so
if you have anyone you want to, shake the dust off of, and
sure, yeah,
I'd love to put them in our newsletter.
No, absolutely. Well, I think just speaking on behalf of everybody in the Parks and Rec world, we appreciate the attention and intention you're putting towards our field and highlighting some of the incredible work that so many people do across the country. So we really appreciate it.
Well, I was part of the Bitcoin community and that whole media ecosystem. I was one of 42, and I was like, you know what, you guys don't need a 43rd.
Sure.
Y'all are covered.
Sure.
The word's getting out. But my Parks and Rec community, I was like, okay, we have to build a media company for this community. They're doing so much good across the world. I mean, really across America, for every citizen in America. And we're going to get it out of this best kept secret for the industry. And my goal is to have college kids trying to beat their way into this industry. And y'all,
that's right. Yeah. The newfound, top profession for people to pursue. Absolutely.
That's right. The most sought, it's going to be Parks and Rec. And then the distant second is going to be like doctors and lawyers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, that would be an awesome day to see that come to fruition. I would love it.
We'll get it there.
That's right.
All right. So maybe you can tell a little bit about the book that you wrote, Home is Where the Heart Is, because I know that's a lot has to do with kind of your origin story or how you got into Parks and Rec.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough, to grow up around the field of parks and recreation. My grandfather, Dr. Little, he was a professor at Western Kentucky University for 36 years in the physical education parks and rec department. Before that, he was actually a parks director in 2 different communities in North Carolina where my family's from. So spent about 5 years, the first half of the 1960s, as the Parks and Rec director in Washington, North Carolina, a little small community on the Pamlico Sound, and then spent the latter half of the 60s as the director in Greenville, the recreation director in Greenville, North Carolina. And so my family's roots are in North Carolina, but then he, moved to Georgia, got his PhD at the University of Georgia, and took his first teaching job at Western Kentucky. And, that's kind of how our family ended up in the Commonwealth here. And then I grew up in the city of Louisville, where my mom worked for Metro Parks and Recreation for almost 30 years, just doing incredible work. And so, just having a front seat, to see the work that they did, and impacting the lives of so many, and impacting the communities that they lived in, was just where I soaked it all up, right? I just fell in love with everything that the field of Parks and Recreation affords us. Opportunities to put smiles on people's faces, to make communities better, enhance quality of life, for so many different people, and really just leave a mark that lasts, for decades, and what you're able to do. And so, as I kind of entered, my high school years, and went to Western Kentucky myself, just chose to pursue a career in Parks and Rec. And fast forward to a couple years ago in 2021, my grandfather actually, he passed away, unfortunately, in September of 2021. And like I said, he was my biggest mentor, my best friend, the person that I called on. And at that point, I had been with the city of Bowling Green for about 5 years, almost 6 years. And, he was the one I called when I was ready to celebrate a new program I was starting, or, getting to be a part of a new project or a new park. And then even more than that, he was the one I called on when I needed help, when I needed advice on, how to handle a situation that I was facing. And he lived right down the street, from my office in Bowling Green, and I just go hang out with him in his living room and soak up all the wisdom that I could. And so when he passed away, of course, my world was rocked, right? I lost that person that, just truly made me who I am, today. And so a couple months after he passed, my wife and I were on our way back from visiting some family for Thanksgiving, and it was a late night, getting back home. And so, you've just got the music playing low. It's dark out. You're driving on these country roads in rural Kentucky. And I just started thinking about, everything that he taught me, about Parks and Rec. And a lot of that was rooted, in an assignment that he used to do with his students at Western Kentucky, where you would take, the prompt was you were given 60 acres, and your job is to design your perfect park. What would the ideal park look like if you were given 60 acres? Now as a professional, I realize, just how big of an opportunity it is to be given 60 acres, to develop a park. But that assignment, as a young kid, my mother, having been a student of his at Western Kentucky, had her old park posters, in our house. And I just used to sit there and just be completely enamored, with this idea that you can take, a blank space, a blank green space, 60 acres, whatever it is, 10 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres, 200 acres, however much land you're given. And you get to create something, that's going to impact communities and bring fun, to the people that live where you live, and where you're working and where you're serving. And you just get to create a new space for people to enjoy, that is going to last well beyond, my own time on this earth. And just the idea of that used to just, I think rock me as a kid, and I just became, again, so inspired by that I would sit there and draw my own, little playgrounds and pools and ball fields and everything that I enjoyed as a child. And then as I got older, I got to do that as my job, which became pretty cool. And so as I'm thinking about that assignment, I'm grieving, right? Again, the last 2 months had been pretty hard for me, having lost my grandpa. And so found out, as I kind of went through that grieving process, maybe I could write a children's book, that ultimately would carry on his legacy of, just talking about, all the possibilities that the park holds, and the amazing opportunities, that Parks and Recreation, brings to our communities, and the ways that it impacts people's lives in positive ways. And so I just started piecing together what a children's book would look like. A young boy meets an older man, comes across an older man while visiting the park with his family, and they strike up a conversation about what the perfect park would look like. So it's real imaginative. It's real fun. It's trails and ball fields and huge playgrounds and all these big things, that you would put in your park. Accessibility, of course, is a big passion of mine. And so those things are woven into the illustrations just to, have that representation of people with disabilities in the book. But then ultimately it brings it back home at the end, and something that my grandfather taught me, and just ending the book, it's, what would you put in your perfect park? The young boy asked the older man, and he just says, it's not the things that are in the park that make it special, but, it's the people that will enjoy it that make it perfect. And so kind of ending the book on that note, I think tied a knot on what my grandfather taught me my entire life. And, home is where your park is was born. And it's just been a way for me to continue carrying, the legacy of my grandfather, Dr. Little, and hoping that it, touches others to be inspired about, the amazing possibilities that the park can bring to our communities. So,
yeah. And I love how you said that the people that are in the park is what makes it perfect. Cause you can imagine a park with nobody in it.
For sure.
Like, what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost like looking at a picture of the Grand Canyon versus your family taking a picture by the Grand Canyon.
That's right. Yeah. No, and that's what he taught me. Our industry is about the people. At the end of the day, we spend so many hours, at the table coming up with new programs and new parks, and it is for no other reason but to impact the lives of the people that live in our communities. And so keeping the main thing is just remembering that, through recreation, we have an opportunity to make somebody smile each day. And ultimately that's our motivation. And it truly is that simple. But as simple as that is, sometimes we make it so difficult. But at the end of the day, it comes back to the smiles that we put on people's faces, and the way that, we bring happiness and enjoyment to our communities.
Yeah. And what was your grandfather's name?
His name was Dr. Alton Little.
Alton Little.
Yep. So,
and what did you call him back then?
I called him Papa. Yeah, that was my name for him. He, like I said, he was my best friend. He impacted a ton of people. He was super involved with the Parks Board, in the department that I now get to work in. When I first started working for the city of Bowling Green, right when I graduated, I was 22 years old. Graduated from Western Kentucky, was starting my master's, and I was fortunate enough to get a full-time position in the department, in the what was at the time called the Special Populations Division, now the Adaptive Recreation Division. And my first office was in a gym named in part after my grandfather. So I got to go to work every day to the Cameron Little Center, and my office was in there. Of course, when I first got my job and my office was going to be in that gym named after him, and one of his colleagues, he told me that he was going to charge me rent for my office, since it was named after him. So that was a pretty cool way to start my career. It just was a daily reminder about who got me to where I am, and just paying respects to everything that he taught me. And it was nonetheless in a program that my mom, while she was a student at Western Kentucky in the early 80s, as an intern with Bowling Green Parks and Rec, she helped start the program that I then was starting to help run. And so just lots of family connections to, everything that I do in Parks and Rec, and how my career started, which is pretty cool.
Now, I know there's so many ways to create media for any industry, but specifically in Parks and Rec, any kind of pointers or anything that you learned after writing your first book, and any kind of advice you can give to other Parks and Rec professionals who may also have a book stuck in their head that they need to get out?
Yeah, sure. No, for me, I think I had always had a dream of writing a children's book. I tossed around ideas for years, and nothing ever really stuck. But I think it's and this is going to sound, pretty obvious and pretty cliche, but it is really true that, it's the personal connections that help the content flow, in my opinion. That, again, I wanted to write a book for so long, but no idea ever really, it just never seemed to come to fruition. I couldn't fully wrap my mind around how to bring this idea in my head to paper. But then when I was able to connect it to, this personal process of grieving the loss of my grandfather, and everything he taught me about the field of Parks and Rec, and, thinking about my career and what I'm doing now as a professional, and trying to, promote to our communities just how special parks are, how important recreation is. When I was able to kind of connect all those dots, each page just flowed out, from my head to paper. And so I think it's those personal stories, that we try to tell other people that ultimately become the best content. And kind of owning those, not shying away from, who brought you to where you are today, um, being willing to tell those stories, I think impacts other people in much bigger ways than just talking about, how many people come through our parks, and, the numbers and the stats and how much revenue we make, and all those things that are super important. Don't get me wrong. It's important to tell those stories, but, those personal stories, and how you're able to impact one life at a time, or again, the people who have impacted you, to get you to where you are. I think those stories, at least for me, help create much better content, that's easier to kind of flow from brain to paper, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's what I learned the most during that process.
Now, it seems like he was really involved in kind of investing in the next generation for a big chunk of his career, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's it's a really good example of, just how throughout your life you're impacted to make an impact, right? And my grandfather, I didn't really find out about this until later. He actually wrote, in 2011, a biography about himself, and it was called "From Milltown to College Town," because he again grew up in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, which, when he was growing up, was a cotton mill town. His mom worked in the cotton mill, in the factory. And then, of course, he ended up moving to a college town here in Bowling Green. But he told this story. He got his first 2 degrees at East Carolina University, in Greenville. And he told this story of a mentor of his named Dr. Todd. And Dr. Todd, I think, has a building, named after him on ECU's campus now. But Dr. Todd was somebody that kind of took my grandfather under his wing. My grandfather started college and then went and served in the Army, before coming back to college. And the way he kind of told the story is he was on campus feeling kind of lost, when he returned from the military, and was about to just leave and just go work in his hometown, and not pursue an education. But then Dr. Todd, recognized him and said, "Here, why don't you come with me? I'll help you get registered for classes." And it was that small gesture for him that, ultimately led, him to do the same thing for thousands of students during his career at WKU. And one thing that's interesting, regarding investing in the next generation, Dr. Todd, I think, set up many scholarships, at ECU. And the way he did it, he would give the amount of money, as the endowment, so that every year that scholarship that was given, if it was $500 a semester or $1,000 a semester, the endowment amount that he would give, was enough so that the scholarship was always drawn on interest, meaning that the scholarship was in perpetuity. It was never gonna end, right? And so that structure of scholarships, my grandpa followed in his footsteps, and at Western Kentucky himself, he set up, I want to say it's 7 or 8 scholarships, in the recreation department, named after his colleagues. So there was a group of 4 professors at Western Kentucky, including my grandfather, that they called like the 4-leaf clover, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where they were just some of the greatest, professors that impacted so many students. So he named scholarships after those professors, and then he named scholarships after my mother, my grandmother, and my aunt, in the recreation department, and put an endowment on all those scholarships so that they're in perpetuity, so that students will be impacted by those scholarships forever, just because he believes so heavily in the importance of education, and not only education, but for future Parks and Rec professionals, and investing in those generations long after he's gone. And so it's just pretty neat to hear stories of that, because I think it places, emphasis again on, you're impacted to make an impact. He learned that from Dr. Todd. I'm learning that from him. And so you just pass that impact, down generation after generation with what, wisdom and things you're able to pass down, which is pretty cool.
Now you're part of, don't y'all have a podcast is that for the state, or is it for Bowling Green, or
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a podcast for the city of Bowling Green. It's called Talk BGKY. It was kind of the brainchild of our PIO office, which includes our broadcast specialist, Raina Johnson, and then our executive assistant and PIO, Debbie West. And then we've got some other staff new to us full time that started as an intern, Jack, that helped produce this Talk BGKY podcast. So it's available to all of our departments. So our police department, for example, our public information officer, Ronnie Ward, comes on and does some like cold case episodes. Everybody loves the true crime episodes and stuff. So he'll come on and do some of those. And then I'm fortunate enough to get the opportunity to host, some of our episodes that focus on our Parks and Rec department and maybe community special events with some other departments with the city. And so, yeah, it's been a cool opportunity. I just listened to a draft of one we recorded a couple weeks ago, and it's a lot of fun. It's fun to jump on the mic and highlight, what's going on in our department. But I think we talked about it last time, in my opinion, the best opportunity that podcast presents is highlighting our people, and, kind of going behind the scenes of Bowling Green Parks and Rec and doing these fun podcasts and just getting to know the staff, that make what we do possible each day in our community. And that's been the neatest thing for me, is getting to cover we did an episode on our cemetery division, and, had our cemetery manager, Kathy Maroney, on the air, and then Steve Butcher, who's one of our crew supervisors out there at the cemetery. And that was just a really fun episode, because I don't think the community really understands or even knows that, Parks and Rec takes care of one of our largest cemeteries that you drive through. And it's on one of our, main, thoroughfares of our community, and everybody sees it, but they don't realize it's Parks and Rec that makes it beautiful. And so being able to highlight that and just give them an opportunity to share what their day-to-day looks like is a really cool opportunity. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun recording those podcasts and making that a part of our day.
Now, that's not the department that has goats helping manage the graveyard, is it?
It is. Yeah.
I thought it was. I couldn't remember.
That's right.
I've talked to so many people, but you got to tell everybody about that.
Oh man. Yeah, no, it is pretty funny. Honestly, it might be more common than I realize. There might be people listening in other departments that also do this, but yeah, our cemetery division hires, contracts, I guess we should say, but I like to say hires, goats to take care of some of our smaller cemeteries during the season. Just helps us maintain some of the grass and, extra manpower, if you will. And so that was one of the funniest parts about that podcast was, Steve, who was on there, our crew supervisor, he's got a funny personality anyways, but I'm sure that was one of the first times, that he had ever been on a podcast and been at the mic. And he just nonchalantly was like, yeah, the goats are great employees, wouldn't trade them for anything. Love having them. And it was just really funny to hear him refer to the goats as employees.
Right.
And they've got names for them, and the community, people that live in the neighborhoods, next to those cemeteries enjoy seeing the goats taking care of the area. But yeah, just another, fun little caveat when it comes to the world of Parks and Rec and how we do what we do. We hire goats and make them a part of our staff as seasonal employees. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, the goats are the OG fully autonomous lawnmowers. Powered.
That's exactly right.
Green powered.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and we have some autonomous mowers now, and I don't know that. I think the goats might be more efficient. So yeah. I don't know, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah, they don't break as much. I don't imagine.
That's right. Yeah, you don't run into as much trouble. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Probably not a big HR problem.
That's right.
Now, what advice would you give somebody that's gonna? I'm always encouraging Parks and Rec professionals to just create content, create media, get the word out there. So often, people in your own community are like, I had no idea that the park offered this, and I'm like, well, this is part of getting the word out, building your online community, your online presence.
For sure.
Any advice you would give to somebody that may want to follow in y'all's footsteps on doing a podcast or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think more than anything, just start. Just hop on the mic and start talking about what you have going on in your department. But then more than that, stories matter. I try to interweave storytelling into what we do as a department and as a recreation division with the people that I manage and supervise, all the way down to our seasonals. I try to encourage them to be really, really, really intentional about finding the stories that we can tell to our community, and finding the stories that personally are going to make you enjoy your job and realize the impact you're making. So I talk to them a lot about being intentional about finding those stories, but also being vulnerable enough to let them impact you, and vulnerable enough to tell them to your community. And I think we even in our program evaluation tool, after every program event that we do, we're doing evaluations, right? We're trying to figure out, where can we improve? What can we do better? What did we do great? Is this the end of this program? Have we reached the end of its life cycle? Is it time to switch it up? So we're constantly evaluating, what we do, so that we can always bring our best to our community. But part of our evaluation process within the recreation division that I lead, I've intentionally made storytelling part of that. So I make our staff at the end of every program, like, tell me a story, right? Tell me a story of the one kid during summer camp that, overcame a fear or did something for the very first time that they had never done. Maybe it's a kid at our community center that, for the very first time went to Mammoth Cave National Park, which is 20 miles north of here, right? And I want you to tell me that story. Tell me the story of the individual who, was injured in a car wreck a few years ago, and now, is paralyzed from the waist down. And we introduced them to sports for the first time again through our adaptive recreation division. Like, I want my staff to tell those stories, because stories matter. And I learned that. It was back in 2018. Have to give a shout out to somebody I know, probably every listener that listens to this podcast is going to know, but Nile Bott, that is huge friend of NRPA, huge supporter of Parks and Recreation. Of course, has his own consulting firm with Next Practice Partners now and everything. But he was our keynote at the Kentucky Recreation and Park Society conference back in 2018. And he shared this website as part of one of his talks called the Significant Objects Project. And I don't know, outside of my grandfather and my mother, I don't know that something has impacted me as much as him telling that story and telling us about that website has. And what that website was essentially, and I'll try to just sum it up. But again, it's called the Significant Objects Project. And basically what it was a bunch of these fictional authors bought all these little knickknack items for, like, I think it was on average like $1.25. So they would go to like a yard sale and buy like a ceramic frog, that somebody probably had bought at the dollar store and it had been in their house for 30 years. Or they would, buy this, whatever other little knickknack. And we're talking 30 cents, 40 cents, $1. I mean, really cheap stuff at these yard sales or at these stores. And then these fictional authors wrote these stories about these items that were completely fake. Like they were not true. They were fictional stories about how this ceramic frog that somebody had in their house was actually from the World Wars. And, it was found in a country in, war ravaged Europe and all this kind of stuff, right? Whatever the story was, it was completely fictional. And then they resold the items with those stories attached to them for like tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And so the reason he shared that was stories matter, right? Ultimately stories add significance to whatever we're doing. And so, that would ultimately be my advice to anybody that's trying to do, content for their department, is just tell stories. Start. You obviously have to start.
Right.
But then just tell the stories, that you're coming across in your department every day, because ultimately when people hear those stories, they recognize, the impact that you're making. On our social media channels, We can put a flyer out on our Facebook page or on Instagram, and it maybe gets, 2 likes and 100 people see it, and it is what it is, right? People aren't drawn to that, but I'm just thinking off the cuff really quick, but at our aquatic center this past summer, a lady lost her engagement ring in the catch pool. And our lifeguards, went fishing for it with their goggles and eventually found the ring at the bottom of the catch pool, which was a miracle in and of itself. And we just took a picture, of the lifeguard that found it with that lady, posted it on our social media, told the story, and that thing blew up, right? Because ultimately people want to hear stories about how we're making an impact. And it can be as simple as finding somebody's diamond ring that they lost at the bottom of the pool, or it can be what I was talking about earlier. You're making an impact in your programs every single day. And if you're intentional about finding them and then vulnerable enough to tell them, then you're going to create content that people are going to be drawn to, in my opinion. And so I think that would be my biggest piece of advice is just start, and then, be willing to tell stories that your department gets to be a part of each day.
Yeah. Okay. We'll take a little break. I want to promote the Young Professionals Network show that we do on Fridays. And then after that, I'm going to promote the Youth Sports Mastery. We'll actually start with Youth Sports Mastery, but then we can talk a lot about internships and just getting the youth involved in different ways that you have found to get college kids, high school kids, part-timers, whatever, just get them involved and kind of get them, exposure to the industry. We'll play that and we'll come right back.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content, we elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. And powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
Are you ready to lead the next generation of Parks and Rec? Whether you're a student, intern, or rising leader, welcome to the Young Professionals Network by DPRS Media Co. Our mission? To empower early career professionals in parks and recreation through mentorship, visibility, and real-world leadership development. Our vision? A national network of passionate, prepared, and purpose-driven leaders who shape the future of public service. Starting now. Powered by the Daily Parks and Rec Show, YPN gives you access to exclusive interviews, career-building resources, behind-the-scenes content, and live events, all created by and for the next wave of Parks and Rec professionals. Learn from seasoned directors, build your brand, get involved with national conversations that matter. Whether you're in youth sports, facilities, programming, or policy, YPN is your launchpad. Young Professionals Network, your career, your community, your story.
All right. So before we move to Young Professionals, just wanted to kind of reinforce everything Cameron said about just starting, set the bar as low as possible to starting. Like if you just press record, that's a success. Everything else, don't worry about it. It's something to be said about just taking that first step and not having to have it all dialed in and perfect. You'll get better over time. And even your storytelling is going to be a little shaky at first, but as you get better and better at telling your story, through practice, I think that's where the importance lies. Anything to add to that before we move on?
No, absolutely. I think you're exactly right. And I think the more people that, can more communities that can start podcasts, I think it'd be pretty cool. And then lots of neat collaborations between departments would be neat to see. And so, yeah, just encourage people to jump on in.
Yep. And if any of y'all ever need any help with a podcast, I'd be happy to give y'all the whole playbook and all the software that we use. It's never been easier to create content and to go live, and the AI tools out there are amazing, that you really don't need some big massive department. It can just be one person and you're off to the races.
Sure.
Okay, so young professionals, what's been your exposure just as a young professional coming in, and then what have you seen out there about how people are maybe incorporating working the interns or the part-timers into their Parks and Rec departments?
Yeah, goodness. It's funny. I feel like based off NRPA's definition of a young professional, I've got like 4 years left.
Yeah.
I turned 32 on Thursday, so I guess then I'll have 3. So I'm almost reaching my end as a quote unquote young professional, which is crazy. But I think here in Kentucky, and it's really because of what NRPA does. For young professionals, we've started a young professional network here in Kentucky that we're going to launch at this year's conference, which we're really excited about. We've gotten really great participation and really just seen, I've just seen a huge influx of young professionals in our field, just in our state alone, which is awesome. And so getting them involved and getting them connected, to that older generation or that seasoned, generation of professionals has been a huge initiative of ours as a society with KRPS. And so we're going to be launching our own mentorship program as part of conference. And again, I think the important thing is we talk so often about, the importance of generations influencing other generations. And it's reciprocal, right? Because the young professionals have so much to learn, from your seasoned professionals that have been in the field for 15, 20, 25, 30 plus years. Obviously they have so much to soak in from the people who have made possible what they're a part of now, that they're entering the field. But it really is on the flip side too. The seasoned professionals, I think, have a lot to learn from young professionals, if given the opportunity to, connect and build relationships with them. And so that's kind of the goal of our mentorship program, similar to other mentorship programs at other state associations or with, NRPA or other organizations that do similar things, is just to, create those connections and build those relationships so that, our society is as wholesome as possible. We want every single person, no matter what stage of their career that they're in, to feel like they're able to grow and become, the best professional that they can be, but also contribute. We don't want young professionals to feel like they don't have anything to contribute, to what the society is doing for the state of Kentucky or what their department is doing. And so that's kind of where we're at, at the society level as KRPS. And what we're trying to grow. We're even going to be, doing our leadership forum in the spring, kind of pairing that up with a young professionals workshop. That way they can have some separate, breakout sessions, but also some joint sessions, again, where we're building those relationships and creating those connections. But then at the department level, like you mentioned, what we do as an industry in Parks and Recreation would not be possible without our seasonal positions, which oftentimes is your high school kids or, your college kids, and then your interns, that you're getting from, of course, with us being, right down the road from Western Kentucky, obviously we have a strong connection to the recreation administration program. And so we get interns from them throughout the entire year. Our goal with any internship program or any seasonal position is to introduce, those individuals to the possibilities that a career in Parks and Rec can have. The opportunities, especially for an intern, they've already chosen to pursue that path, academically. And so it's obvious that they have a passion for it or an itch to, pursue a career in Parks and Rec. But for our seasonals, they're getting a paycheck. Ultimately they're coming to work for us for a paycheck, and I'm happy that we can provide that. But I really do try to encourage our staff and remind myself to try to connect them to the bigger purpose of what Parks and Recreation does. Maybe it's that they get connected to that and they do choose, eventually to pursue a career in Parks and Rec, which would be amazing. That would be awesome for somebody's first job as a lifeguard at the local aquatic center to lead to a career in Parks and Rec. So many people have that story. But I'm even, interested in, even if they don't pursue a field in Parks and Rec, when they're an accountant, or a lawyer or a doctor 20 years from now, I'm really trying to create opportunities for them to learn something in our positions that's going to apply to their career, no matter what field they're in. That 20 years from now, that they'll call back on, that opportunity that they had as a summer camp counselor and say, you know what, that's when I learned how to put somebody else's needs over my own, or that's when I learned how to be of service to others. And I'm going to try to use that lesson as a lawyer now, or whatever it is, as a teacher. And so we just have a lot of cool opportunities to influence the next generation, hopefully get them into the field of Parks and Rec, but also just, encourage them to learn what they can from, the opportunities that they have in our field. So
now, why did y'all choose to launch it this year? I know, it's kind of new for y'all. And then and so that's going to be a YPN just for the state of Kentucky, similar to the NRPA, but mainly just for the state. Yeah. And then how many kids do y'all have involved as well?
Yeah. We, it was just the right time. I think we've had it on our radar for the last few years. I was involved a couple years ago, and my involvement's kind of fallen off, unfortunately, just with career stuff and personal things I had, going on. I was involved with the YPN for NRPA, hoping to get back into it. And ever since I got involved with that one, it's always been something we've wanted to do at the state level for Kentucky, just because we knew it would make a really big impact. And so now's the right time. We had a lot of young professionals at last year's conference, approaching us saying, hey, we would love to do more. Hey, we would love to get involved with this. This is our first conference, and we really love, being connected, but we want to connect with other young professionals. And so it just felt like the right time. We had people coming to us and expressing interest in it. And so, we launched the YPN back in January, and have done Zoom meetups all year. And then we'll launch, of course, the mentorship program at conference this year. But we probably have anywhere from 10 to 15 young professionals involved in that have expressed interest in, being a part of what we're creating. And they're from all over the state, which is great. They're not all concentrated in one area. Our department alone has probably 10 young professionals. And so, but it's neat because we're all in different stages of our career because of the sizes of communities that we work in. We've got some young professionals that are park directors in, really, really small towns and cities in Kentucky. And they're a staff of like 2 people. And then you've got a department like mine where we have close to 60 full-time employees. And so, there's just a diverse range of people that are a part of it, which helps grow perspectives, and we can all kind of share and encourage each other along the way, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's really important. And like you said, a young professional can find themselves in charge of a department, even though it's small. That's a great place to learn, where you're wearing pretty much every hat there is to wear in those small towns.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. You're doing the maintenance, you're planning the program, and you're building the facility. So you get to do it all, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, where do they, what's the format look like in y'all Zoom meetings? Yeah.
We early on, had some, just some prompts to it. We would get together and, hey, what's going on in your community? What challenges are you facing each day, as a young professional, as a department? And then what it really focused on this year with this launch was, how can we make conference more beneficial to you all? So what educational sessions are important to you? What opportunities do you want to see when we come together, every November annually as a society, but then throughout the year? Like, are there other in-person opportunities that you all want to be a part of? And so it was really just a lot of getting to know each other, learning about each other's, opportunities and challenges that they face in their departments. But then also just kind of helping shape what our society is going to look like moving forward, at our annual conference and beyond that. And so, yeah, it's been, really fruitful conversations with the group that even our new executive director, Patrick, that was on a call one time. He got off and called me on the phone, and he was like, I never really thought about, whatever the topic we were talking about. I never really thought about it that way, but, that's kind of invigorated me a little bit. And I just learned a lot from, what each one of those people had to say, on that Zoom call. And so that's kind of what we're after, is everybody is able to provide, something in terms of encouraging and influencing each other, just to continue to be at our best for the communities we serve.
Yeah, well, maybe you can help me find a couple of those young professionals that like to come on our Friday show and let us know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'm positive there would be people that would be willing to jump on. So yeah, no, that would be wonderful.
Fantastic. Okay, so I hear you got a new book cooking in the kitchen. So
Yeah,
what can you tell us about it?
I'll tell you a little bit. It's a little bit more of a personal book. Obviously, the first one was very personal, related to my relationship with my grandfather and everything he taught me about the world of Parks and Rec. But this new book, so I became a new dad on April 1st of 2024.
Congratulations.
My wife and I welcomed our son Beckett to the world. But our journey to welcome Beckett was pretty wild. My wife, I was going into my first summer officially in my role as recreation manager. It was January of 2024. And long story short, my wife was 24 weeks and found out she had something called preeclampsia, and was rushed to the hospital at Vanderbilt and ended up spending 66 days inpatient at the hospital in Nashville. And so as I was preparing for my first summer running our aquatic center and being over our summer camps, I was commuting between Bowling Green and Nashville, which is about a 45 mile drive down I-65. And so kind of crazy, I was hiring my staff for the pool over Zoom and over phone calls. So sight unseen, which was a little nerve wracking because the success of the aquatic center really is dependent on the staff that you hire. I hire about 60 people to work there. And so I was on Zooms with them, on phone calls with them, and commuting back and forth between here and the hospital. And our son ended up being born on April Fool's Day, which was pretty funny. My wife spent 66 days in the hospital, and he's like, joke's on you all, I'm here on April Fool's. And so we welcomed him into the world. He was about 8 weeks early when he was born. And so he was born at 3 pounds, 2 ounces, which is incredible to welcome somebody that small into the world and everything. So it was just a season of life for us that, we learned a lot of lessons just about, waiting and wondering what the heck's going on, and, just having faith in the moment and learning to kind of trust the situation and what's going on. And so this new book is, of course, set in the park because all the books I write, I want to, be set in the park. But it's just a visit to the park with me and our son Beckett, and us just kind of walking through our journey with him. So he encounters, different wildlife alongside a stream in the park that, teach him about, wonder and waiting and all these things. And so the title is called A Walk Along a Parkside Stream. And again, it's just a story of our journey welcoming our son Beckett into the world. And, just excited to create another whimsical story that, I hope people enjoy. So,
yeah, I love it. So when do you think that'll be available, or do you have a timeline yet, or is it just
it's being illustrated right now by the same illustrator for my other book. And so, again, looking forward to, seeing some of that come to fruition, and lots of little nuggets in that book related to my grandfather. So, I've still got him, the same character from the first book, off in the distance, sitting in the park. And so lots of little Easter eggs, if you will, for some other things that mean a lot to me and my family. And again, it's all set in the park because the park is the root of it's the foundation of everything important to me and my family. It's where I've learned all my lessons in life, and it's important for me to have the park as the setting for anything I try to bring out and bring to the world. So
fantastic! Can't wait till that thing goes. Well, you have to let us know when it launches.
Sure,
so we can get a copy of it. I'll put it on my bookshelf back here.
That's right. There we go. I love it.
Okay, so we have a little tradition with your sales pitch for the industry. Imagine you have a group of college kids that are undecided what they want to do with their life. What is your pitch to them to dedicate their life's energy to the Parks and Rec industry?
Sure. Yeah. Oh gosh. We don't have a whole nother hour, do we?
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, there's so many things that you could use. I think at the end of the day, you literally get to leave a lasting legacy through what you do in Parks and Recreation. Again, I mentioned it earlier on the show, but the things that we get to be a part of, again, the parks that we create, the facilities that we develop, the programs that we offer, the services that we provide. You're impacting lives every single day when you show up for work, and you can't put a price tag on that. No salary or compensation can pay you what seeing a smile that you get to put on somebody's face can pay you. We just did an episode for our podcast. Just recorded it I think last week or the week before, and we kind of painted this picture. We were doing a summer recap, for everything that we, programs and everything that we offered in the summer, and then looking forward to fall. And one of our local community centers, Parker Bennett, is in our housing authority district. So for the most part, lower income families, that community center has been a part of our department and our service delivery for decades, and has just made a tremendous impact in the lives of so many. And it's your most modest community center in the world, right? It's a small little building that the housing authority leases to us at the city for a minuscule amount of money every year, because they know that we're going to occupy it and do positive programming in it. But it's not big. There's a commons area and like 3 classrooms and a kitchen. But then out to the left of it, we've got a new playground that we just built within the last few months. It's our community's second, fully inclusive and accessible playground. And then next to it is 3 basketball courts that are honestly some of the nicest basketball courts we have in our community. And so what we were talking about in that podcast is we did for the first time ever, an outdoor summer youth basketball league that brought kids from every corner of the community, kids that probably have never been to Parker Bennett and in that neighborhood. And that's kind of the beauty of Parks and Rec. You bring people together of all walks of life, of all backgrounds, of all socioeconomic statuses. You bring them together through the world of play. And there's no better way to bring people together than Parks and Rec. And so myself and Jake Willis, our athletics coordinator, were talking on the podcast, and we just I said, why don't we step back and just think about this for a second. We're standing on the sidewalk this past summer on a night where the youth basketball league is taking place. So there's hundreds of people on the basketball courts. I was like, there's, hundreds of people enjoying the new playground, people under the shelter enjoying a nice little cookout in the park. We've got all these people in the park at one time, and you can, hear the swings going, the playground's creaking a little bit like it always does. There's people cheering on the basketball courts, kids laughing, just people having a fun night in the summer. And I said, let's just take a minute and just think about that moment for a second, because all those things that, I just mentioned, when you truly soak that in, that's why we show up every day, is to create that picture that we were witnessing, right? That moment that we were taking in, all the smiles, again, all the enjoyment, all the laughter. We're actively creating those things 364 days of year. I like to say that we get at least one day off, right? 364 days a year, 24/7, we're getting to create those moments. And I can't think of a better industry. If that's what you get to do on a daily basis, I can't think of a better place to work, right? I mean, you get to create those moments, and nothing can pay me what seeing that take place can give me. I mean, it's just an incredible opportunity to be a park and rec professional and make those moments happen. And honestly, just help people create memories in the park that last a lifetime. That's the motivation for sure.
Yeah, what a great testimony. Thank you. Okay, so we have another tradition where our previous guest left you a question. Now, this is
wow.
a unique question, and then you get to leave a question for my next guest.
Oh man, okay.
This comes from John Prue. He is on the NRPA board of directors, but he's worked a life in MWR, which is the Morale, Welfare, Recreation Department of the military.
Yeah,
okay. So his question was, and this can kind of go to, I guess, all the different populations that you serve, but his question is, if you have a military base close to you, or, obviously you most likely have some veterans that are in your community, what do you do to kind of involve them in the community? And then you can also stretch that into identifying people that you might be leaving out, creating programs for everyone else but them. So what do you do to kind of make sure that these people are that you have something for those people?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic question. And, luckily for us, I go back to where I started my career with our adaptive recreation division. So our adaptive sports program, now our para sports program, actually got its start through a grant from the Department of Veterans Affairs. So we were lucky enough that my mom was still working for Louisville Metro Parks, and her colleague that now works for Lexington Parks and Rec in Fayette County in Kentucky, Jill Farmer, we all went in on a grant together that my mom wrote that actually helped us here in Bowling Green purchase and receive our first fleet of sport chairs. And so, the background of adaptive sports and the Paralympic sport movement is veterans. The Paralympic sport movement was started to give away for wounded vets coming back from the world wars, an opportunity to kind of recapture, a part of their life that they had before they were deployed and before they served in the wars. And so when they come back and they're injured, that's why the Paralympic movement started. And so historically speaking, when we start adaptive sports programs, our biggest goal is to involve, veterans, whether they are wounded or not, just to help them understand the historical connection of the adaptive sports and the Paralympic sport movement, to our veterans and to our military community. And so that, again, the Department of Veterans Affairs is how we started that program. Ever since then, we've built some pretty cool relationships with organizations like, the Paralyzed Veterans of America. We've worked with them to do some pretty cool adaptive sports clinics like disc golf and even air rifle clinics in our gyms, and just your normal sports like bocce and wheelchair basketball and wheelchair tennis, wheelchair softball, all those things. And so our adaptive recreation division and our adaptive sports program has a specific, target in terms of finding, veterans that would benefit from participating in our programs. And luckily for us, we're close to Fort Knox and then Fort Campbell here in Kentucky. And so we can kind of pull hopefully some, populations and participants from those, those military bases to be a part of our programs. Even in retirement, my mom still works pretty closely with PVA, the Paralyzed Veterans of America. And so that connection always helps our program, do some different things. We've been able to work with our county parks department to do an adaptive water sports program where we have adaptive kayaks and have created accessibility on some of our creek access points. And our target with that is of course, the veteran community, just ensuring that they're able to enjoy the outdoors and enjoy outdoor recreation and being on the water. And so, we're fortunate that, that's always kind of been a target population for us, because we know that historically speaking, recreation and sport was used as a tool to again, reach out to specifically veterans that were wounded in service. And so we want to, try to continue to do that and provide programs that benefit that community.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure John would love to hear that answer.
Yeah. That was a great, I'm glad I got that question. That was a good one.
Yeah. Okay. So what question would you like to leave for our next guest?
Oh man. Oh, that's tough. I guess I'll just call back to, I guess, what I talked about with content creation. This may be an easy question, but I would ask the next guest, when they're on the show, to just share a story with the listeners that has made the biggest impact on them in their career in the field of parks and recreation. So whether that's a story, of you offered a program and a participant, gave you a story to tell, or maybe it's a mentor that's impacted you. But yeah, I would just ask them to tell the listener a good story about why they do what they do in the field of Parks and Rec.
Okay. Share a story with the listeners of the biggest impact what was that last part? They have,
I guess somebody's made on them, or participant, mentor, whatever.
Someone has made. All right. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And everybody's got one.
They can use that story to start a podcast. So
that's right. That'll be there you go. Now you've got a topic and you've got to press record.
There we go. That's right.
Well, Cameron, thank you so much for coming back on the show today, from episode 9 to episode 233.
That's crazy. I'll be back for episode 446. So
that's right. Well, we'll probably catch you at the when is y'all's convention coming up? That's second week of November?
It's November 11th through the 14th.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, I will be there. I will be there airing live, covering the whole thing. So we'll get you another episode. You'll be our first 3 episode person.
I love it. I'm honored. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing your story, and thank you for all the work that you're doing, and thanks for writing those books for the whole industry. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, no, again, like I said at the beginning, I appreciate, the spotlight that you're placing on, so many incredible people. I'm humbled to be a part of a field that has so many incredible professionals, working in it across the country. And so I appreciate you highlighting them and giving us an opportunity to get to know what others are doing. So
yeah, well, we'll keep it going. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah. Take care, Cameron. All right. So that was Cameron Levis. He was one of the first people I ever interviewed for the Daily Parks and Rec Show, episode number 9, one of the first 10. And it's hard to believe that it's been that long since we've chatted. And just a really great, Parks and Rec professional that is, I guess he would be 3rd generation. And it just shows how this can really leave a lasting legacy, not just on your community members, but even your family members that will take up the same banner and run with it for the rest of their life, just dedicating their life to bringing joy into people, joy into people's communities, joy into people's lives. And love this industry, love covering it. All right. So a couple announcements. Yes, we are meeting 4 to 6 p.m. on Tuesday at NRPA. It's just going to be a gathering for all the people that have come on the show. If you'd like to meet me and the rest of the people that are helping build the Daily Parks and Rec Show, please stop by. I think we're going to end up meeting just kind of in the general area. So if you see some people, I guess I'll get some kind of flag or something to kind of let you know where we are. But I'll start announcing the exact location as soon as I get to the convention. And then we will be airing live with a lot of our hosts as well. So hopefully we can record maybe 20 or maybe even 30 live shows from NRPA here in Orlando in a couple of weeks. If you haven't gotten your ticket yet, it's never too late, even if you want to come for a few days. And then on Wednesday, we're going to meet for coffee. There's a coffee house right down the street. I just need to make sure that that's good enough for us. And then we'll meet. So we'll have like an evening meeting, 4 to 6 on Tuesday, and then probably like a 7 to 9 a.m. coffee meeting. If you'd love to come by, hop on the show, say hello, or just come say hello to me, even if you don't want to come on the show. I know a lot of people are kind of camera shy, but I'd love to meet the community in person. And it's going to be great. We've also got, as you heard, we are officially attending Kentucky, Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama. Who else are we attending to? California we're working on, and we've got a few others that we're just kind of penciling in the dates, making sure we can make it. And so if you are a Parks and Rec executive director for your state association and you'd like the Daily Parks and Rec show to come and do our show live, cover your event, we'll interview vendors, we'll interview people that put on the convention, interns that are working the convention, and then, of course, the attendees as well. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to bring the Daily Parks and Rec show to your state and highlight everything that y'all are doing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close it out. Let me go ahead and play the facilities maintenance promo. I want to chat a little bit about that, and then we'll close it out after that. Play this right quick.
Behind every thriving park, every safe playground, every event-ready field, there's a team working before sunrise and long after sunset. This is Facility Maintenance, the only show created for and by the unsung heroes of Parks and Recreation. Brought to you by DPRS Media Co., where real work gets real recognition. From restrooms to rec centers, HVAC to turf tech, we go beyond the job site into the heart of operations that keep our communities moving. Our mission? To elevate maintenance teams through stories, solutions, and shared experience. Our vision? A world where every facility crew is seen, valued, and fully supported. Each episode features operators, innovators, and leaders, sharing tools, tech, and tactics that make the impossible look easy. Facility maintenance isn't just a job. It's purpose, it's passion, and now it's a show. Facility Maintenance, where tools meet purpose, where work becomes legacy.
All right, shout out to all of those facility maintenance professionals working in Parks and Rec industry. We could not do what we're doing without y'all. That is fully half to maybe even more than half of all the effort and money and manpower that goes into Parks and Recreation, is just maintaining this trillions of dollars worth of real estate across America, some of the most pristine, beautiful green spaces in every city. So thank y'all for keeping the cities looking beautiful and giving us a place to walk out of our homes and just experience nature and just relax and unplug for a minute. Really appreciate all the hard work y'all are doing. Okay, so as I said before, if you are a vendor that would like to partner with us to co-create content for the Parks and Rec industry, we want to create separate shows, each speaking to your profession and how you serve the industry. And we can really do deep dives into, because if you've noticed, a lot of these topics, it's just so hard to cover. I mean, we can take like grant writing or master planning. It's hard to just explain it in a 5-second conversation or even a 5-minute conversation. And so what we'd like to do is to create 12 hours of content for a vendor and their expertise and the mastery that they have been bringing to the market for decades. And that way we can really provide truly educational content and create a content library that's evergreen, that can exist on our YouTube channel and our playlists, so that someone working in aquatics can see a whole content library just on aquatics, or they can go to another playlist section that might be just on master planning or working this massive deferred maintenance load. And then we can just go by category after category after category and really start to capture all that wisdom that is buried inside of these Parks and Rec departments, buried inside these vendors' heads, and just get it out here and try to, really create more of an educational library so that we can just share that wisdom with the whole industry. All right, so we'll play a little promo to close it out. And so this is me signing off. Don't forget, we have a full lineup for the rest of the week. We've got another facility maintenance show coming up. We've got Aaron Locke with his Thursday show, 1:30 p.m. Eastern on youth sports. So if you have anything to do with youth sports, please tune into our Thursday show. It really is special, and he brings some of the best people. Had a great show last week, has another great one planned this week, so don't miss out on that. And if you are listening to us on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live or X Live, please go onto our YouTube channel, subscribe to that, so that we can really get that content library going, and the algorithm opens stuff up the more subscribers we have. So it's really important to kind of help us get the work out. All right. This is Craig LeBlanc signing off again with the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. See y'all tomorrow. Bye.
At DPRS Media Co., we believe Parks and Recreation isn't just a service, it's the heartbeat of our communities. We exist to honor the people, the vendors, and the leaders shaping the future of Parks and Rec. Our mission is simple: to tell their stories, highlight their careers, and celebrate their essential work. Our vision is bold: to be the trusted hub where leaders, vendors, and communities unite, inspiring innovation, sharing wisdom, and building a stronger, healthier nation. Through over 220 live shows and 6 weekly series, the Leadership Series, Facility Maintenance, Young Professionals Network, Youth Sports Mastery, The Rec Room, and Growing Leaders, plus our industry-leading newsletter, the weekly Parks and Rec Post, we're building a media platform made for the Parks and Rec community. And now, we're inviting strategic partners to co-create this story with us. As a partner, you'll gain 12 hours of annual live exposure with custom shows highlighting your expertise, polished 60-second promos refined for maximum impact, year-round visibility with dozens of replays across our media network, premium features in our newsletter, and amplified social media reach across LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. This is your chance to educate, inspire, and lead while connecting directly with the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. This is DPRS Media Co. Let's build the future of Parks and Rec together.